Could the United States monetary policy be the cause of international chaos? Some suggest the U.S. is exporting inflation, causing unstable food prices and ultimately civil unrest. Is the Federal Reserve really to blame because of its money printing schemes? Here to discuss are my Freedom Fighters Fox Business senior correspondent and my buddy Charlie Gasparino, radio host Leslie Marshall, and Mises Institute founder and chair Lou Rockwell. All right, Charlie.
Okay, you want me to say the Fed causes the...
I don't necessarily want you to say that.
Unrest in Egypt.
I want you to talk to me about food prices going up because they're pegged to the dollar and the value of the dollar going down. That you'll accept.
Yes, that is true, but there's also an immense amount of demand for food right now, and it's coming from China. And the sort of the needs of China, you know, you have to admit, they are driving up prices of scarce commodities like food, like oil, like other commodities. But and that's part of the equation. So it's not just...
You cannot deny, I'll go to Lou and Leslie in a minute, you cannot deny that when the Fed pumps money into the economy, right, the purchasing power of the dollar goes down, and food in Cairo and Tunisia and Libya becomes more expensive.
It does have an impact. I'm not going to deny that. But to judge, you have to admit that when India's economy expands, when China's economy expands, demand for goods goes up, and that has an impact on prices.
All right, I can't deny that. Leslie, can you point a finger of blame at the policies of the Federal Reserve for causing food prices to go up in the Middle East?
I will give you, again, like Charlie, the food, the 59% approximate increase. But
you're giving me 59%? Give me the whole argument.
No, that's a 59% increase in the food prices. But that is not, I'm going to bail on you now, Judge, because basically we have to look at demographics. These countries, all in the Middle East, had a huge baby boom or conception boom about 25 years ago. Unlike the United States, where the majority of our population is heading into the senior years every single day for the next 19 years, they're quite the opposite. They have a plethora, overwhelming majority of people in these countries that are 25 and younger, coming out of universities, don't have the economy, through the internet, have a link to the Western world, see what democracy and opportunity through democracy have, and they're angry. So this is about a lot more than food prices, and even though many of us, myself included, like to blame the Fed, can't do it here, Judge, not 100%.
Even for those of us who are fortunate enough, Lou, to have regular paying jobs, a spike of 59% in the price of food would obviously hurt us. It will certainly hurt the poor, who don't have regular jobs, who depend on largesse from dictatorial governments in northern Africa, won't it?
Judge, darn those Chinese for not wanting to starve to death anymore. But the absolute problem is what the Fed has done is they've put a boot on the face of every poor person on this earth, not only in North Africa, in Latin America, in Africa, and they've sticking them into the mud. So this is what this unbelievable inflation monster, worst ever released in the history of the world, that Mr. Bernanke has done, is harming people all over this globe. We're feeling the inflation here. We're in for some very serious economic trouble, and especially poor people who are on a subsistence diet at the best of times are going to be starving. So, Mr. Bernanke, you are responsible.
Is there a way to sort of turn this argument around and say, without intentionally doing so, Bernanke has unleashed the fury of revolution and democracy in northern Africa, Lou Rockwell?
Well, you know, I'd like to see him unleash it in Washington. You know, maybe we'd have a crowd around the Fed, and Michelle would be saying, let them eat low-calorie cake.
Do any of these arguments that we go through every Tuesday and every Wednesday excite your ardor to want to audit the Fed, to want to know what they're doing?
Listen, I'm the last guy that likes the Fed. I'm just saying I don't go full bore like you and Lou. I don't think they caused the bubonic plague. I agree with about half of what you guys are saying, but you know, you have to admit
that caused the monetary plague.
Right. Well, listen, I don't disagree with that. I mean, you know, listen, all the crazy stuff they do. Listen, we've had 0% interest rates now for how many years? I mean, that is distorting incentives in the market. You cannot deny that.
Punishes every saver.
It punishes every saver. But you have to admit, when China grows as it grows, and it's more than just what they want to eat, you know, move from white rice to yellow rice. I'm just telling you that there's a demand for...
Lou uses a very interesting phrase when he says financial plague. Bernie Madoff caused a financial plague. This morning, a top lawyer at the Securities and Exchange Commission, who inherited $1.5 million from his mother's investments with Bernie Madoff, according to a suit filed by Irving Picard, the trustee, seeking to recover money for the victims.
This was the former general counsel.
He is still the general counsel of the SEC. Supposedly he's leaving next month. He's been the general counsel of the Securities and Exchange Commission for 10 years. Okay. Is that the reason why Bernie got away with all this?
Let me give you another sort of layer of conflicts here. Bernie Madoff's niece worked for his company.
Right.
She married an SEC examiner.
That's right.
Who essentially, it was a story I broke when I was at Brand X, who investigated Madoff. Listen, I'm not saying there's anything illegal here, but here's the conflict of interest. When you have people at the SEC who want to work in the private sector, who want to work for the Bernie Madoffs in the world, they're going to look twice before they investigate.
Lou Rockwell, one of the things that even you and I agree government should do is to protect us from fraud, protect us from force, protect us from fraud. The government did not protect us from fraud when one of the chief protectors was benefiting from that fraud. Does this surprise or scandalize you?
No, Judge, because the SEC, like every other federal regulatory agency, was set up at the behest of the big companies that they regulate. Yep. It was the big Wall Street firms that set up, along with the Roosevelt administration, the SEC.
Joe Kennedy.
All these agencies.
It was Joe Kennedy.
They work to promote the private interests in cahoots with the government and against the customer.
And the worst thing about it is they go work for the private.
All right, Leslie, this is not a Republican versus Democrat thing. Just because the first chair of the SEC was Joseph P. Kennedy. Put that aside. The SEC was asleep at the switch. Their general counsel inherited money from Madoff. He and the SEC looked the other way. What do you say about that?
Well, I say the SEC was looking the other way for years because Madoff and everybody else were making money or losing money with this huge Ponzi scheme. Look, Judge, I know a lot of people are not going to like me for saying this, but when you have a bunch of rich people taking other people's money and gambling with it like you do on the floor in Vegas, what's to trust? I don't play the market, and I never would, so I don't trust this organization.
This goes beyond that.
Good advice.
This goes beyond that. I mean, you really do have to ask why the SEC, when presented with credible evidence over a period of 10 years, literally did not investigate. To me, it's always been the conflict of interest. Bernie Madoff helped create the NASDAQ stock market. He ran a big business. They all wanted to work for him.
This litigation against this guy Becker, the general counsel, in my view, is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that's going to come out. Leslie Marshall, Lou Rockwell, Charlie Gasparino, thanks for being here. Up next, The Plain Truth.